Mark Carney pulled the old New World Order statement with poor Scott Moe, who looked like he was in a hostage video after their trip back from China. And then now it has really been the theme of the World Economic Forum to the point where um, I think the single largest recipient of Canadian foreign aid and probably global foreign aid, Vladimir Zelensky from Ukraine, is now parroting that same phrase, saying that world leaders need to act now to create a new world order. So let's hear this.
But where is the line of leaders who are ready to act? Act now, on land, in the air, at the sea, to build a new global order. You can't build the new world order out of words. Only actions create real order.
What does he want us to do? Does he want us to send troops? Is that what he's talking about? Or more money? But he did say that we need to act on the land, the air, and the sea. How? How? You want us to send our young men to fight your unwinnable forever war? You're already getting our money. What are we supposed to do here?
Swaths of money. Well, and I also found it interesting, the clip of Zelensky also, where like it seemed to be okay. So the theme at Davos, this Swiss schmooze fest this year, was all about dialogue, but it really seemed to be about like thinly veiled passive aggressive criticisms and like straight up call outs of President Trump. And Zelensky was not immune to that dialogue that they created at the World Economic Forum this past week. And he calls out Trump and asks, like, correlated what's happening with Ukraine and Russia to what the US just did with Madros in Venezuela.
With Maduro, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. In Venezuela, and asked basically why Putin was still roaming the world, or Russia, a free man, and calling on Trump to basically do the same thing and come in and arrest Putin and put him on trial. And I think we have that clip. If we could show that one, because really, like, unless you see it and hear it for yourself, it's kind of unbelievable.
What is the American interest in blackbagging Putin like they did Maduro? Like, there's no American interest there. Anyways, I'll save my comments till after. I haven't seen this, so I'm coming in cold, but I'm excited to see it.
Let's look at the Western Hemisphere. President Trump led an operation in Venezuela, and Maduro was arrested. And there were different opinions about it, but the fact remains: Maduro is on trial in New York. Sorry, but Putin is not on trial. And this is the fourth year of the biggest war in Europe since World War II. And the man who started it is not only free, he is still fighting for his frozen money in Europe. And you know what? He is having some success, it's true. It's Putin who's trying to decide how the frozen Russian assets should be used, not those who have the power to punish him for this war. Thankfully, the EU decided to freeze Russian assets indefinitely, and I'm grateful for that. Thanks, Ursula, thanks, Antonio, and all the leaders who helped. But when the time came to use those assets to defend against Russian aggression, the decision was blocked.
Yeah. So when he talks about action, I think that is where he's thinly veiling his passive aggressive comments toward Trump to take action. I mean, and he also calls on Europe to stop the flow of Russian oil. We have that clip as well. Stop the flow of Russian oil, so that because it's inadvertently, or I guess not really inadvertently, but directly funding the opposition.
It sure is,
according to Zelensky.
Yeah, but it sure is. And Canada was the solution to that. But just going back to his comments there, the Monroe Doctrine basically puts the Americans in charge of the Western Hemisphere, whether the rest of these crybabies like it or not. We saw what Pete Hegseth and the boys did in 88 some odd minutes to Maduro. One day he's sleeping in his bed, then it's just tumbleweeds, his empty slippers, and you're on a Black Hawk in a new tracksuit wearing earmuffs and a sleep mask on the way to New York to stand trial. But that's the Monroe Doctrine. That's the Western Hemisphere. You can't out of one side of your mouth say Trump's a bad guy and this and that, but then also saying, oh, you need to expand the Monroe Doctrine to cover the entire world. Careful what you wish for, guys, because that's how you end up giving them Greenland. And these guys are all crying about Greenland.
Well, the
But
funny part about Greenland, just while you mention it, Sheila, is that Zelensky also mentioned in there that Ukraine would help defend Greenland,
how?
and right,
How much more money do we have to give this guy?
the hypocrisy just seeds from these people when you realize the context in which they speak and how out of touch they sound when you recognize the global affairs and context that they're speaking in. I mean, it's absolutely astounding that some of these people can get up on this stage and speak the way that they do in blatant disregard of things that are actually happening on the ground.
Nobody's
Yeah, so here, look, he says
nobody's
that
gonna attack Greenland militarily at all. There's like 13 people there. If Trump rolls in with a stack of cash, those people are going to want to be at least under the control of the Americans. I was doing some digging on the Denmark thing and their relationship with Greenland. After they annexed it, Greenland then goes and joins Denmark then goes and joins the EU. But you know who's not part of the EU? Greenland. So they want full control over these people as though they are a colony. And Europe seems to be very serious about making sure that they stay within the control of Europe, but they don't get any of the benefits, I guess, if there are any benefits to being Europeans. They're not part of the EU. So their mother country, the Kingdom of Denmark, they're members of the EU, but Greenland is not. They're treated like second-class citizens. If the Americans rolled up and said, "Our beloved Greenlanders," I think they might be willing to listen. But
not if
Zel
Zelensky has anything to do with
Zelensky can, by the
it.
way, if Zelensky wants a dictator black bagged and stuffed in a Black Hawk, take it up with his buddy Macron or maybe Keir Starmer. They're the Europeans. The Monroe Doctrine applies to the Western Hemisphere, and I enjoy peace and safety thanks to the Monroe Doctrine. But yeah, let's watch Zelensky saying that
Offering,
he's going to save Greenland from
yeah,
what?
can't even save Ukraine.
Well, and what's going to happen to Greenland? Trump's is going to come on real strong and with the art of the deal. No, we've all seen what the American military can do. Okay, we've seen. Ugh.
Until America pressured Europe to spend more on defense, most countries were not even trying to reach 5% of GDP, the minimum needed to ensure security.
We're giving
Europe
you all of our
needs to
money.
know how to defend itself. And if you send 30 or 40 soldiers to Greenland,
Just 40.
what is that for? What message does it send? What's the message to Putin, to China? And even more importantly, what message does it send to Denmark? The most important, your close ally. You either declare that European bases will protect the region from Russia and China and establish those bases, or you risk not being taken seriously because 30 or 40 soldiers will not protect anything. And we know what to do. If Russian warships are sailing freely around Greenland, Ukraine can help. We have the expertise and weapons
Expertise.
to ensure not one of those ships remains. They can sink near Greenland just as they do near Crimea.
He makes an interesting point there. I almost agreed with him, but he's asking the wrong people for help. Actually, Trump is the solution to this problem, isn't he? Because he is talking about Russian incursion into that territory and Chinese incursion into that territory, which is literally the same thing that Trump is talking about, which is why Trump says we need to secure Greenland. And of course, he cannot count on Canada as a secure partner in the North anymore because we're making deals with the people he's concerned about in the
Mhm.
North. So, yeah, honestly, I know this is bizarre, and I came in to that clip with a different viewpoint. But yeah, Europe, what are you going to do? And if you're not going to do anything, and I don't think you can do much of anything, maybe Trump is right. And maybe like if you look at this just completely from a macro viewpoint, Trump is concerned about the same things that Zelensky just mentioned there with Denmark, and Europe doesn't seem to be capable of doing anything about it. So what's the solution, guys? It's not Ukraine, by the way.
Yeah, they're gonna sink Russian warships off of the coast of Greenland, is, what I gathered from that clip also.